See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify, get helpful stats, and all the support you need to sound your very best.
Hello, this is Russell from
Tomes of Evil.
and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. Hello, loony listeners, and welcome to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. As you can tell, I am not the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, nor am I Rebecca, nor am I the Power of Chad, or any of these other loonies that come on this show and go nuts. No, I am a voice from the past. This is Russell. And you may know me from shows like Tomes of Evil, or Predator and Prey, or Gamma Charge, the strongest podcast there is. And I'm joined by my co-host on three of those shows, all three of those shows, Justin the Owl. How are you, Justin?
Oh, I'm doing great, Russell. Thank you. How are you?
I'm excited to be here. If you didn't know, Gamma Charge and Into the Night are swapping episodes this month.
That's right. For DID Awareness Month, we're doing a little bit of a switch. And so this month, you will be able to find the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, and I believe Leyna
I think so.
is going to co-host the episode over at Gamma Charge, the strongest podcast there is. And we don't actually know what they're talking about either, so it's going to be a nice surprise once the episode actually drops. But yeah, we are guesting on this episode. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Russell and I have both been on Into the Night in the past couple of years, off and on. So if you're a regular listener of Into the Night, you will have heard us a few times over the past couple of years. But yeah, we're both super excited to be filling in on this episode.
For sure. I was, let's see, what all have I appeared on Into the Night for? I was on an Isla Ra session.
Me too. The Desert Island books.
Yeah. Loved that episode.
Yeah. Those are great fun.
We need more of those, Ray. If you're, what else? I've talked about Black Spectre a couple times. I've talked about. I think I was on an episode where Ray and I were, like, talking about characters we'd want to fight Moon Knight or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know any of the episode numbers or anything. I'm not that much of a fucking nerd. But,
that's a nod to our friend Noel.
Yes, another pretty frequent Into the Night guest host.
Yes.
Justin, what all have you been on Into the Night for?
Well, also, yeah, I did an Isla Ra.
Lots of bonus shows, too.
Fun. Lots of bonus shows on Patreon. Yeah, actually, I just recorded one with Ray last week, so there will be one, I think, next month coming out on there. Any patroonies, definitely check that out. And if you haven't signed up for the Into the Night Patreon, definitely do so. And we've talked about Moon Knight kind of fantasy team-ups, like who Moon Knight has never teamed up with in the past that we would make a really good story guesting with. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of stuff. I remember we've reviewed a bunch of issues, a bunch of standalone issues There were some classic ones from the original series that we talked about. And there was one in the Solo Avengers, the Moon Knight's appearance in the Solo Avengers, and a couple of the Marvel fanfare issues as well.
Yeah.
From the 80s, which were kind of like nice little undiscovered gems for a lot of new Moon Knight fans. Probably didn't know about those. So it was super fun to talk about those. I love those episodes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, before we get into our topic, which we don't have any white noise, we don't have any of that stuff. We're flying by the seat of our pants.
Well, we'll let Ray handle all the regular white noise.
Yeah.
When he returns next month, next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast, means to us.
That's a good idea, Russell, yeah.
So, if it was not for this podcast and the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, I wouldn't be a podcaster myself. And I wouldn't have met Justin.
That's true.
Because
that's true. Yeah, Russell and I met through this podcast. That is absolutely true.
And we met before we were even podcasting. We were doing the Paint Monk's Library Moon Knight reviews there for a little while with each other.
Yeah. We got quite a few in there too, actually, before it came to a halt. But that was due to COVID, unfortunately. We couldn't do much about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, Ray and this podcast really inspired me to do my own podcast, and that was one of the reasons that Ray was my first ever guest on Tomes of Evil, the comic book supervillain podcast.
Your very first show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that show is now coming to an end. Bittersweetly, but I mean, we haven't heard the last from me. Obviously, I've got 47 other podcasts, but
and who knows? Tomes of Evil may come back someday in another form or fashion.
Well, you know, Justin, evil never dies.
That's right. That's right.
But Justin, how about you? I mean, how did you first discover the podcast?
Well, I wasn't really much of a listener of podcasts before Into the Night, but I was, at the time, I was kind of hungry to kind of get other people's viewpoints on Into the Night, and I thought that would be a good place to start, would be a podcast. So I started listening to some episodes, and then after that, I fell in love immediately with all of it, and I became a Patreon and all that other stuff. And I would agree with you. If it weren't for Ray and listening to the podcast and getting to know you guys, I would never have thought of becoming a podcaster myself either. But just due to the positive experiences I've had on Into the Night and with you, obviously, on Tomes of Evil, it gave me the
itch.
Confidence or the itch, just kind of the need to do something like that regularly, to have that as a regular part of my life. And it's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, it's been such super fun to do all these shows. Yeah.
We wouldn't have that stupid group chat if it wasn't for Ray. So I don't know if that's good or bad. No. No.
But yeah, Ray is such a golden person. He's one of my favorite people too, and I love doing Predator and Prey with him. I look forward to that every month, doing that show with you and him. It's definitely the highlight of my month, doing that show with you guys. And I can't say enough good things about Ray in this show. It's such, and Moon Knight in general. It's such a great group of people.
Yeah,
like all the people that are on as guests on this show are all great people. They all have different viewpoints about Moon Knight, but we all have a deep love of the character, and we all have a deep appreciation of what the character means to us as well. So it's great. I have nothing but great things to say about all of the Into the Night crew and people involved with the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had so many great moments with Ray, just on the show, off the show. I mean, we love talking about Predator. He's been dipping his toe in recently to DC stuff, and
Yes.
how could I forget that I had to explain to Ray what a banana pepper was, so...
I love it.
And then he was like...
And we're always... Go ahead.
I spent this whole thing explaining to him what a banana pepper was, and he was like, "Oh, we've got those!"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was like, damn it.
We just call them this. Yeah. Exactly. And the feedback that he would send in to Trek the Howard the Duck podcast, I would always look forward to those.
Oh, man. We dubbed him the platypus on that one.
So much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we did the Patreon episode the other night, we gave each other some new ideas of comics to read too. A lot of times when we chat, we kind of give each other new ideas of stuff to read, and that's always super fun too.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah,
well,
love the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray.
Yes, indeed. Now, if you're not familiar with Justin and or myself, we do love Moon Knight. We're not just here to talk about Ray, but no, we love Moon Knight. I mean, Moon Knight is I consider top 3 favorite Marvel characters, right alongside the Incredible Hulk, which makes sense, and the Amazing Spider-Man. So, what about you, Justin? Where does Moon Knight rank for you?
Number 1. He's number 1 of my favorite Marvel hero, and has been for a long time. Yeah, I can't even remember who the favorite was before him. That's how long it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, yeah, he just sums up everything that I love in a comic book hero in a nutshell. Yeah.
I cannot pick just one. Like, that's why I was like, I have a top 3.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
And then I also think about, I also love Doctor Strange, and I love Thor, and I love the Silver Surfer, and Sleepwalker. But
gotta love some of those underdogs too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Justin and I's topic for today is we were originally going to do a kind of Moon Knight for Dummies episode with our
Loonies for Newbies.
Yeah. With our other co-host Carl, but Carl quit. Carl had enough of me and Justin's shenanigans, and he packed up he took his ball and he went home. We love you, Carl.
We do. We love you, Carl.
But he quit. So instead, Justin and I, since we don't need Moon Knight for newbies, since we're not newbies,
right,
we have chosen our top 5 Moon Knight stories of all time.
Yes,
and
our personal favorites.
This was Justin's idea, and at first I was like, "Oh shit, how am I going to come up with a list?" And then, I actually came across it pretty naturally.
Nice.
So this can be a single issue, it can be an arc, it can be, whatever. Mm-hmm. It also doesn't have to be a
Moon Knight comic.
Right. It can be a guest spot. It can be anything. Mm-hmm. Also, I feel like we should alternate. Like, I'll do my 5, you do your 5. And I don't want to gloss over them. So let's try to talk about them as much as we can, because we're gonna fill a whole fucking episode here. But
plus we hardly ever get to talk Moon Knight.
No.
Like, I mean, we talk the Hulk a lot. We talk bad guys a lot. We talk Predator a lot. And
Right.
we talk about other stuff a lot. But we never really get the chance to talk about the character that brought us together as friends and as podcasters. So
Yeah.
this will be fun. Yeah, I love this.
But, it never fails that Moon Knight comes up. Unlike
Oh, yeah.
almost. And I did a string of Moon Knight villains on Tomes of Evil, one of which
Yes.
was with you before you were a full-time member.
That's right.
But then we also did Khonshu with Moon Knight Corps. Wasn't that with Moon Knight
Yeah.
Corps? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
I loved that one too. even though I had to read Agent.
Well, that's my number 5. No, I'm kidding.
I'll still never forget his reaction after I said, "Holy fucking moldy monkey balls!" I think he was like, "Holy shit, is this guy gonna go off on me?"
How dare you! Well,
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. We'll alternate. We'll do your number 5 and my number 5, and then we'll just go back and forth.
all right. Who would like? This is weird and wild stuff. Who would like to go first?
You can go first.
Oh boy, this is gonna be. I'm on the spot.
Yeah.
I might have to call in. I might have to call in some old friends of mine, like MODOK or the babies.
Phone a friend.
If listeners don't listen to Tomes of Evil, they're like, "What in the fuck am I watching? What is going on?" The babies and MODOK. The Green Goblin. Wow. Anyway, my number 5. This is kind of ironic in a little bit of a way, Justin, because this 2-part story comes from the Hulk magazine,
Nice.
and I don't think this has like a story title, but I call it Hatchet Man because it is the. I struggle to say the debut of Randall Spector because it was retconned later that it wasn't Randall Spector.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is the debut of the Hatchet Man, Randall Spector, and it is basically a slasher movie starring Moon Knight.
Totally.
And I love this because it is dark, it's gritty, it's a horror film pretty much. It's very noir. It's pulpy.
Super pulpy.
It has some.
But it also feels like the time that it was set in,
Yeah.
which was 1979. It does have that feel to it.
Yeah.
Too.
It's got that real like dirty New York 70s. Yeah.
Gritty. Yeah.
It hasn't aged incredibly well in some aspects, but I also find it absolutely hilarious that when they colored this, Justin, I don't know if you've ever seen the colored version from the it was a Moon Knight Special Edition miniseries.
Yeah, there was a hardcover.
There was that too. Yeah.
But this was a different one.
Yeah, they reprinted these Hulk magazine Moon Knight stories in 3 issues that they just released.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
They made it to where Hatchet Man's mask had a white face and green hair. I was like, you didn't just do that. You did this on purpose. But
I kind of think it is in the hardcover volume too.
oh, that reminds me. Batman. Big Bat.
I didn't put him up to that, Ray, just so you know.
Neither did Phil. I will never forget the absolute shock and horror, even though I knew she was in later stories, when the Hatchet Man hit Marlene with an axe. I was like, holy shit, what just happened? Because, like, he didn't just, like, grazer. No, he fucking hit her. And
That was a deep cut.
Yeah.
And she was in critical condition.
yeah. Which, say what you will about, is that fridging? Is that Marvel, using Marlene as a damsel in distress, But it was effective at the time of me reading it. And also brutal ending for this Randall Specter, who was basically hanged.
Impaled.
Yeah.
Impaled on that branch.
Yeah, I love this story, and I really was angry that they retconned this to make it much more convoluted and make more sense. But yeah, and Randall gets a lot of flack, especially once he became Shadow Knight. I prefer this original incarnation, even if it is the same name as the ICP mascot. The Hatchet Man.
Is that really the name of the mascot? I didn't know that. Oh, that's so funny. I love it.
Justin, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is going back to 2016, Moon Knight Volume 6, the Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood series, which you could basically say, I guess, is one
story.
Complete story.
Yeah.
Like from beginning to end, it tells a beginning, middle, and end story, and it does have a pretty much clear-cut ending at the end of it.
What a crazy fucking story that is.
I love that story so much. Like, I'll never forget reading that for the first time. And being a Moon Knight fan of a few years already, just feeling like this was truly what we needed as Moon Knight fans in a series, was something that delved deep into the character's psyche and that dealt with things from his past as well. And that also dealt with his relationship with Khonshu, because that hadn't been really addressed to the extent that it obviously needed to be, really in years, if at all. And so I felt like it was important to the character on a wide variety of levels, and it fundamentally told really a moving and emotional story. I remember getting all misty-eyed at the end there. Gosh, when they were all hugging each other, I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. And I would still go back to read it from time to time, because it's such a good read. And the artwork is gorgeous. It's breathtaking. It's everything that I love about Moon Knight in a series.
And such a trip, such a metaphysical tale, which very much inspired the TV show. Especially that asylum. Also, Amet and all the Egyptian gods really, obviously Moon Knight's always been tied to Egyptian mythology for decades, but I feel like the Lemire run really was like, we're
going back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I love that aspect of it too, because I've always been a fan of Egypt-based stuff.
Yep.
And that link to Moon Knight was always extremely precious to me. So having them address that as well in the story also made me happy, and also made this a favorite.
Yeah. Gesundheit. No.
I'm congested today.
Oh. It's probably all that snow you're getting.
I'm over it. Yeah, God. Oh.
So my number 4, this might surprise a lot of people.
Okay.
This is the first 6 issues of Vengeance of the Moon Knight.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is Greg Horowitz. I don't remember who's on art. Don't kill me, Ray. But
maybe Ray will add that in post-production.
Maybe. So Vengeance of the Moon Knight, I loved it for a lot of reasons. One,
It was a Jerome Opeña.
oh, thank you, Justin.
I just looked it up real quick.
This was a redemption story for Moon Knight, which he's had a few of those now, but this was a redemption story. This was kind of coming out of the really dark place he was in during the wow, I'm blanking.
Henson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Volume
3, 2006. Yeah. Wow, why can't I think of that?
the Houston and
There we go.
I know. Yeah.
Houston!
I was having a brain cramp too.
Houston and
Yeah.
Finch, and later
yeah.
it was oh hell, Max Texera, and
Yes.
I gotta remember this because it's gonna come up in a second.
Benson.
Yes, Benson.
Mike Benson.
That's it. Damn, what is
Charlie Houston and Mike Benson. I know. I'm a little rusty too.
You're a little rusty.
We need to talk about Moon Knight more often.
Yeah.
We're rusty when it comes to our MK.
But it was a redemption for all the dark bullshit he had done in the Houston and Benson run, and he was on a war path with the Green Goblin. Of course, we never got that showdown, but no, I loved it, and I loved it was kind of like, pardon me for saying this, it was kind of like Moon Knight's Long Halloween, because he just kept getting thrown different villains. He had a brief battle with Marvel's Scarecrow in that, and he, of course, we got the resurrection of Raoul Bushman, who...
Raoul.
Yeah, whatever. But
Raoul.
there is a great scene in that where Bushman has a bazooka. But, oh, and of course, this was one of... this might have been the first time we saw Moon Knight in the boxer briefs that Rebecca loves so much.
Yeah.
But we saw teams up with Spider-Man during that, but that was later. I think the book kind of falls apart because they do like a story with Deadpool,
yeah.
and a story with Spider-Man, and then he joins the Secret Avengers, and that's the end of the series. But I loved it. Lots of great art. Moon Knight's got great gadgets, and like I said, he's I'm all about that redemption, and I would have loved to have seen Moon Knight versus the Green Goblin. Come on now.
Yeah.
Well, technically,
we still haven't gotten that.
No.
That follow-up. Like, that was never dealt with.
No.
Yeah.
Norman Osborn was off to bigger and better things. But it's funny, Justin, that something from Dark Reign would become pivotal to Moon Knight later.
Right.
Justin, number 4?
Number 4 for me is actually a two-way tie.
Uh-oh.
I couldn't decide between these two standalone issues, but they're from the same series. They're just two different stories. Going back to the Warren Ellis run from 2014.
Yeah.
I'm looking at issues number 3, in which, I'm sorry, this was also art by Declan Shalvey.
Of course.
Number 3, in which Moon Knight fights a gang of ghosts and puts on that amazing bone armor, which I love so much. And a tie between that issue and issue number 5, in which Moon Knight, as Mr. Knight, goes after an abducted child in this abandoned hotel in New York and beats the ever-living piss out of a bunch of mob enforcers on his way through that building. I absolutely love both of those issues. It was too difficult for me to choose between those two. I'm like, damn it, I've got to have a tie here. But I love them both so much. To me, those are the best issues of that series. And it was hard to pick because that whole series I love intensely. And it was hard to pick from that some favorites. But out of that whole series, those two definitely stand out. When I first think of that series, both of those two issues immediately pop to the forefront of my mind as being the ones that I loved the most and the ones that I went back to read the most afterwards. So, yeah, I would choose both of those as my number 4 pick.
It's all in your head, Pathfinder. I know.
I know.
But yeah, great choices there, Justin.
Thank you.
All right, we're in top 3 territory now.
Yep.
My number 3 is Moon Knight, Volume 1, number 25.
Ooh, this is number 3. Okay.
Number 3.
I was thinking this would be higher on your list, so this is a surprise for me.
Doug Minch, Bill Sienkiewicz. This is the debut of the Black Spectre.
Yes.
So
good.
I love this story. It's long. It's a double size issue. And what I love about this story is that the focal point is Carson Knowles, the Black Spectre.
Right.
And also, like, okay, so you feel sorry for this guy. He was a Vietnam vet that came home, and Vietnam vet, Marvel time and all that. He was a war veteran.
He was a war vet
who came on, and he was treated really poorly. Got his child taken away from him. Couldn't find a job, and he just snapped. It was like what's that Michael Douglas movie?
Breaking down.
Falling down.
Falling down.
Yeah. Except he snapped, saw Moon Knight, and was like, I'm going to do that, but bad. And then he became Trump. No, that's an insult.
The greatest evil of all.
That's an insult to the Black Spectre. But
yeah, exactly. You don't want to put him down.
Because this guy's in shape. But
yeah, he's got hair.
No, this to me, I read this right for the first time. Read this right in the middle of all that, so I was like, okay, this foretold the future, kind of.
I can see how that would be eerie.
Yeah,
that whole parallel of that. Totally.
Yeah, because he was a crooked politician that made his way to the top through nefarious means, and was also lying to the public and turned the public against Moon Knight. Turned Marlene against Moon Knight, Justin.
Yeah.
Not that hasn't happened a billion times.
Yeah, that was one of the earlier times that we saw it happen, though. and yeah, it's one of the times that we see Moon Knight actually lose for a while. Like, he gets stuffing kicked out of him in that issue.
He is physically, mentally, and emotionally beaten by the Black Spectre. I also think that this is some of Sienkiewicz's best art ever, especially
so good.
That cover that has been duplicated many times.
Yeah.
And Black Spectre's really cool. I mean, he wouldn't show up again until Resurrection War, like 10 years later, and then another 10 years before the next appearance, and then he died, and he hasn't been back since. But we got that Pretender in the Ellis run, but
that's right. Not the same, though.
No.
Not the same.
He didn't have a mace, for God's sake.
That's right. He didn't have the medieval armor. I mean, come on. Yeah.
But I love this story. This is one I always go back to in Volume 1. This is my own...
He's your favorite Moon Knight villain.
By far. There's a contender now to take his spot. But historically, yes. So, Justin, number 3.
Number 3. This may or may not be a surprise for you, Russell. Moon Knight versus Anubis from Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu #1. Now, this series gets a lot of crap from Moon Knight fans, but I feel like it's gotten a reevaluation in the last few years because we had a character from that series turn into the main villain for the television series. So people actually went back and read that series, and I think a lot of them were like, hey, this isn't actually quite so bad. So, but I love this first issue because of the pulpiness of it. I love the fact that it went back to the original place of the origin in the desert. I love the fact that we had an Egyptian-themed villain who was kind of a badass in his own way, and also very 80s, like super 80s.
Yeah.
But reading it when it came out in 1985, I thought it was absolutely gorgeous, and it was some of the best art. I should comment about who made it. It was Alan Zelentz was the writer. And Chris Warner was the artist with inks from E.R. Cruz. And I loved the gorgeous art. The art was very pulpy in that one, too, which I loved. And also the sexiest Mark Spector. When he was on that diving board and tossing and turning in that bed. Oh, man. Yeah. The seeds were implanted at a very early age when I was poring over those pages and staring at that image.
You can't see it, listeners, but Justin has a little title for his name here that says Biscuit Night.
Biscuit Night. But yeah, definitely. I love that issue so much, and I will always defend it, that series in particular, but definitely that issue. I'll defend its merits as being awesome. The Egyptian themed, like the Fist of Khonshu costume. I can see why a lot of people don't like it. And I get the fact with the stupid gloveless hands.
Yeah, that's the worst. The worst.
I hate the gloveless hands. If they could recolor that
makes me cringe.
If they could recolor just that in that series and fix that and make those gloved and make those, then that would be marvelous. But
marvelous.
Other than that, like I didn't have a problem with some of the other stuff, like the little axe that he had, like the little axe thing and the little throwing darts and whatever. Like it was fine.
Yeah, I'm still not crazy about Fist of Khonshu, but I don't hate it as much as I used to.
Right.
I still think the whole Arthur Harrow thing is hilarious.
It is hilarious. How overnight that one issue went from being like $2 on my comic shop to $200.
Funny.
What are you people doing?
Gotta love those consumers.
Man, that's a mess.
Number 2. Getting down to the nitty-gritty now. This should surprise no one. Actually, it might surprise you that it's not number 1.
Okay.
God and Country.
Oh.
Moon Knight, 2006 series, number 14 through 20. This is Benson and Texera. This is the proper return of the Black Spectre.
Yes.
And it is a hell of a fucking arc.
It's wild.
And Justin and I did a audio... Justin Ray and I did an audio reproduction of one of the issues of this story.
We did. And that was so much fun. I loved doing that.
Yeah, Justin got to play both Moon Knight and Iron Man, one of his favorites and one of his least favorite.
Yeah, and in the same scene, too. I was talking to myself.
Yeah. And I played Black Spectre, Crowley, who is my favorite supporting character in Moon Knight, and the man himself, Khonshu.
Khonshu, yeah.
So this
as the faceless Raoul version.
Yeah. Looking at Tigra's boobies. But
you liked this form before.
But Yeah, this is like a proper sequel to issue 25. It like hits a lot of the same beats. It's like an homage, but at the same time being a sequel. Black Spectre just proving once again that he is a fucking badass, and he is also a master manipulator.
He does it again.
Yes, he does it again, and this time it doesn't go well. But
he's not going to do it a third time.
No.
It turns out.
Not unless he puts his thumb in his mouth.
Yeah, or unless he has his own Resurrection War miniseries.
But evil never dies. But anyway,
That's true.
it's a great story. Moon Knight is probably at his lowest in this.
Yeah.
He's wanting those pills. Crawley of all people is the voice of reason in that story.
Slap some sense into him. Yeah.
But like the ending where Moon Knight he feels he has no choice he just pushes Black Spectre off the building into a superhero registration act parade, I might add. But
he more hurled him off, didn't he? Didn't he have him like over his head, and he was just like...
No, he just gives him a tap. Because Black Spectre's on the ledge, and he's like monologuing.
That's right. Yeah, and he comes up behind him, and he's just...
Black Spectre had also gotten some Stark nano machines, and he was going to unleash them on the little parade down there. And Mooney gave him a little love tap. And we get this beautiful scene where as Black Spectre's falling, inside of his mind, Carson is like reaching for his dead son. And it's like this beautiful, like, the Black Spectre is dying, but Carson Knowles is finally at peace.
Right. He wasn't suffering anymore.
And that's also where Moon Knight told Khonshu to shove it.
It's a great story. It's fantastic.
It's
And that artwork is absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I love Texiera. He's fantastic.
Yeah. He did Sienkiewicz justice in that story for sure.
100%.
Number 2 for Justin.
Number 2 for me is going back to the original Moon Knight series, Volume 1. Number 7 and number 8, The Moon Kings. This is the story in which there are some terrorists who have these kind of wolf masks, and they poison the water supply in Chicago with a hallucinogenic drug.
They poisoned the water hole.
Oh, and I should mention, this is also Doug Mensch with Bill Sienkiewicz, and inks by Klaus Janson and Frank Giacoia.
Oh, man.
So good. I love the art in these issues so much, and I love this story. Like, I remember when I was first reading this initial run of Moon Knight, these were the ones that stood out to me. This the whole story of them poisoning the water supply and everybody drinking the water and going nuts. Like, it also, there were parts that unintentionally made me laugh. Like, the one part, I'm laughing just thinking about it. When Mark's trying to call Marlene, and there's a phone switchboard operator, a woman switchboard operator who's connecting the call, and she takes a sip of water. The operator takes a sip of water as she's connecting the call, and like a couple of panels later, she goes absolutely crazy, and she's got tears running down her face, and she's hauling the wires out of the switchboard and screaming. And I don't know why, but every time I look at that panel, I lose it and laugh. Like, there's something about that just kills me. And even so much so that back when Ray was doing the audio story, the
serial,
The Hunt for the Golden Scepter, I had come up with some original, like, kind of supporting cast characters to insert amongst the loony-based characters that had been made for the story, and one of them was that phone switch operator who had survived that experience, and then went to New York City, and then had to deal with the water supply getting poisoned a second time.
Oh no!
Not again!
Not another enema!
Yeah, I named her Glennis Carpenter, and I fully intend this year at some point to go back to that script and polish that off and send that into Ray.
You've got to, yeah.
Yes, but I love the Moon Kings. Great art from Bill Sienkiewicz. Great. I remember I loved the little things that Doug Mensch did with the story, like with the no smoking sign turning into the Moon Kings, and like the whole like scene of him going back and forth on what he thought was the moon and these weird creatures coming at him. Like, it was just so weird and so wonderful and perfect Moon Knight to me. Yeah.
Right. Well, before we give our number ones, we didn't talk about this, but Justin, do you have any honorable mentions?
A couple, yeah. I really love one of the Marvel Fanfare issues. It was the one dealing with Gaia, the Earth Goddess. I forget exactly which number it was. But I love that issue. I thought that also was so weird. And so I really love the weird Moon Knight issues. Like, those are the ones that attract me the most. If they've got some strange, weird, bizarre vibe to them, they usually appeal to me more so than the standard fare. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that one almost made it onto the list. I also really love, and this is kind of funny, but I love the whole Round Robin, the Sidekicks Revenge story in Amazing Spider-Man. I think that's a terrific story. Yeah. It has some great artwork. It's got some super action. It's a good spotlight for the only guy who was ever Moon Knight's sidekick.
Oh, Midnight.
It kind of deals with him, which was nice. I really love that story a lot too. Yeah. And also some of the news stories from the Jed McKay run, like the whole initial one with Hunter's Moon. I love that. I love some of the more recent stuff. Yeah, a lot of it was difficult, to pare it down to 5. But how about you? Did you have some
honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions for the list?
Just ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Moon Knight's several encounters with the Hobgoblin.
Oh, yes.
And also the the West Coast Avengers issue where Moon Knight beats the fuck out of Taurus.
Oh, yes. Actually, yes, that one almost made it onto my list, too.
He's just this unrelenting force. He
stalks him over land and sea and air.
Taurus is in that helicopter, and he's like, I'm finally out of here. What? And there's, Moon Knight.
There's something on the wing. I love it. Well, that's a great issue, too, of West Coast Avengers. I love that one.
For my number 1 is what I dub the Zodiac Saga by Jed McKay and Alessandro Cappuccio. This took the cake as my favorite Moon Knight story because I have not read an issue of this run I did not like. And the whole build-up to this mystery villain, who is it? Everyone's guessing. No one got it.
No one got it. Yeah.
But man, Zodiac is who I was talking about when he is a contender for being my favorite Moon Knight villain now. He's just so good. He's so evil. As Jed McKay puts it, he's just a shit. He's just a little shit.
He's just a shit. Yeah, exactly.
I went back and read the Dark Reign mini that he debuted in, and I loved that. And he's and of course, like you said, Hunter's Moon is great. You've got all these supporting cast members now. You've got Reese and Soldier and Tigra, my God, looking better than ever.
She's amazing. And I love that Jed thought to bring her back. Out of all of the supporting cast characters of the past that he could have picked, he chose her because it makes total sense that she would still be around and doing stuff.
And we can't forget that... Oh, sorry, Justin.
Well, and they used to be an item.
Yeah. And one of my favorite moments in that run is when they're holding hands and they're like, I can't remember what the exact verbiage is, but they're like talking about like, I always needed a friend, blah, blah, blah. And that made me teary-eyed.
When they were talking on the rooftop, right?
No, this was after. This was right before they go into battle against Zodiac. They're like holding hands and they're like...
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, yeah.
But, I mean, we also got these... all the stuff with 8-Ball and the Wax Man.
Yes.
And for fuck's sake, Justin, Mountain Marco was...
Mountain Marco. Former spokesperson for 1-800-CONTACTS.
But yeah, the first, I think it was like 12 or 13 issues of, I still love what he's doing now, but that first 12 was amazing.
It's definitely great, yeah. And that was almost made it onto my list too. Yeah, it's tough.
So Justin, drum roll, what's the Owls? Number 1.
Mine is one that you've already picked for your list. Yeah, Hulk Magazine.
Wow!
Yeah. Number 17, 18, and 20.
Wow.
This is my favorite Moon Knight story.
I did not expect that at all. Wow.
How about that? Yeah, I love it so much for all of the reasons that you mentioned, and just because when I was reading this, it just hit all the buttons that I wanted for Moon Knight. When I was first reading this, I thought, this is perfect. Like, this is what brings me to the table when it comes to Moon Knight. And then the weird kind of esoteric stuff keeps me there. You know what I mean? So, like, forgetting the whole stuff with Shadow Knight and what they did later on. Like, if you exclude all of that stuff, like, to me, this is, like, the classic story. And it could have been so dumb. Like the whole thing with the brother, like the evil brother thing, has been done to death. We can admit that. And the whole theme of the serial killer going after beautiful nurses, I mean, that could have also tanked it. But the way that it was illustrated and the way that it was handled, and I'll just never forget when Moon Knight brings Marlene into the hospital, and so he's sticking by the side, and he threatens to beat the shit out of that cop. It was like gonna be like, well, you can't blah blah blah. And he's like, you try and move me, and I'll lay you out or something like that. I mean, I just love so much about it, and like you said, it's dark, it's gritty, it's like a slasher movie. It's creepy. Like the whole monologue in the beginning when he's talking to himself and looking at himself in the mirror, and there's that mask there. Like, yeah, it's really dark stuff, and I love it so much.
I think Doug Minch really liked Halloween.
Yeah,
but
yeah, maybe.
But that story also it exemplifies, or it portrays. Justin and I are very similar. We love the Shadow and the Question and those pulpy street detectives.
Street
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always said that, people always say, "Oh, Moon Knight is Marvel's bad." He's way closer to the Shadow than he is bad.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory way either.
Oh, no, that's meant to be a compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that Mooney's as intelligent or as infallible as the Shadow is, but
no,
he's not a pushover.
No.
Well, I think that does it, Justin.
Yeah,
we did it.
Up our list. Yeah, that was.
Do you need a cigarette?
Nice. We had some. Yes, actually, now that you mention it. That was nice. We surprised each other with our lists. I love that. Yeah.
I was wondering if we would have any in common, and we did.
Yeah, it was a good one. I love it.
So, listeners, we're now going to take the next little bit to plug all of our 40,000 shows. So it'll be another 4 hours. No, but, no. So, right off the top here, I have to say that I am indebted to the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, and we love him so much.
Yes.
And
thanks for letting us host this guest episode.
Yeah, it's a dream come true, kind of, really. And it wouldn't, it was going to be a totally different show until Carl quit. But
but we still had fun.
Yeah. But
we hope that the ladies enjoyed our picks. And also send in your comments, too, on our picks as well.
Let us know what you think about me and that sexy voice over there, Justin the Owl, the biscuit maker. But the biscuit maker versus the Undertaker. Yes! But so when Justin and I are not guest hosting Into the Moon Night podcast, you can find us on a variety of shows, including the show that's on its death knell, Tomes of Evil, the comic book supervillain podcast. We are on like the farewell tour for that show.
Still have a handful of episodes left.
Yes, but most importantly, you can find us on Gamma Charge, the strongest podcast there is, which is all about Hulks and She-Hulks and all the different variations of all those fuckers. You can find us with the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, on Predator and Prey, a Yautja podcast. Yautja means predator.
Yautja means predator.
We do that once a month. Sometimes we get extra because we interview some creators.
Yes.
And last for me, you can find me and Noel on Trapped in a World, the Howard the Duck podcast. Justin, anything else to add?
Yeah, and you can also find me once a month over on Capes and Lunatics. We Are the Night, the Bat podcast. And also every week. And also every week, Phil and I co-host Marvel Tales, where we talk about pretty much everything to do with Marvel from the last 30 to 50 some odd years.
Yeah, and Justin and I are working on some more projects, one to replace Tomes of Evil, and one that Justin announced like 2.5 years ago.
Yes. The Lost Library of Legends is still on its way. I'm still doing it. It's going to take on a different form than I originally intended, but it's still coming.
Yes, we're not rushing you by any means.
Right. I know.
We're just joshing you, as they would say.
I know. But it is. I know I've been saying that for over a year now, but it is almost ready.
Mm-hmm.
What I've been doing, actually, Loonies, I'll give you a little glimpse into my mind process. Instead of the thing that was hanging me up a lot was the editing, the post stuff, going back and editing myself, editing my ums and ahs and all the breathing out. And I hate that. I hate that shit so much. So I decided what to do instead was to scrap all that stuff. And I'm just going to write a script for myself. And I'm going to read from that script and record that, put an intro on it, and call it good. And that's going to be the Lost Library of Legends podcast. And that way I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to do it every month. Mm-hmm. And I won't have this pressure hanging over me like, oh, I've got to edit this podcast. I've got to edit this. Yeah, whatever. If you don't like listening to my ums and ahs, then I can't help it. So,
right.
Yeah, that's still coming. I decided to switch my gears about how I wanted to do the show, and that's basically my new formula. And I think it's going to be.
I'm very excited for that because, Justin, you're a fantastic writer and you have a fantastic voice. So,
thank you.
I think that's going to really be beneficial, you writing the script.
I think it'll be easy. It'll be easier for me too to kind of keep myself focused, because I also have a tendency to meander a bit.
You
and add. So it will be good for me also to edit myself without beforehand, without having to do anything after the fact. I'll be able to edit myself.
Well, one more thing before we go, before we hop on our Moon Knight gliders and fly off into the night sky.
Angel Wing. You hop on your glider. I'm hopping on Angel Wing.
I'm going to hop on the Hulk shoulders and let him fly up. But
you better hold on tight.
But I have an ode to Rey.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You do realize he's never going to let us host the show again.
No. We're done after this one. I don't remember what Ray says to sign off this show, so that one's good enough.
Oh, yeah. may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
We'll catch you later, Looney listeners.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.
Hello world, it's time to open the green door and enter the strongest podcast there is, Gamma Charge.
Twice a month, Russell and I dive into the history of the Incredible Hulk in comics, film, TV, games, and more.
That's right, Justin, and we rate and review all the Jade Giant's media, good and not so good, with a smash or a gamma clap. And we put on the rant pants when we just can't take it.
And join us on Patreon to get exclusive bonus podcasts, prizes, and more at patreon.com/Gamma Charge Hulk Podcast.
We will see you real soon, Gamma Beasts. Stay green.
Gamma Charge.
The strongest podcast there is.